Tonight, new threats of a regional war if the U.S. moves forward with strikes on Iran.
We do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction.
America ramps up its show of force. Iran says it's not scared. The stakes abroad and around the world. A 5-year-old detained by ICE for nearly 2 weeks finally returns home.
The American people don't want to see these images of children and people being dragged out of their cars.
How the Trump team says it's scaling back. And the Canadian waiting in the wings for a potential mission to the far side of the moon.
My assignment guarantees a seat for Canada, for all of you.
Jenni Gibbons on her role in this historic moment.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hannamansing.
U.S. warships are converging on the waters near Iran tonight as Donald Trump is warning Tehran to submit to Washington's demands or face an attack. But Iran's supreme leaders issued a warning of his own. In no uncertain terms, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is now saying if the U.S. starts a war, this time it will be a regional war. Still, at least 10 U.S. military vessels are now within striking distance, including the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. And Trump is seemingly unfazed by the danger of another explosion of violence in the Middle East. Aaron Collins now on what Washington wants from Iran and why a war now could have global consequences.
A show of force impossible to ignore. The U.S. flexing its military muscles on Iran's front porch.
We do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction, as you know.
All those ships an attempt to ramp up pressure on Iran.
You could make a negotiated deal that would be satisfactory with no nuclear weapons. They should do that, but I don't know that they will.
The U.S. wants Iran to stop enriching uranium and dispose of current stockpiles, limit the range of the country's ballistic missiles, and put an end to its support of groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran's foreign minister says his country is willing to talk.
President Trump said no nuclear weapons, and we fully agree with that. Of course, in return, we expect sanction lifting.
But the country's supreme leader striking a different tone, warning a new conflict could spread across the region. A familiar chants of death to America ring out in Tehran, echoing on streets where billboards carry threats of their own. But protesters against the regime have clogged those same streets in recent weeks. Thousands believed to have been killed as the state violently cracked down on dissent. Some Iranians wary of another military clash. I'm 100% against war, this man says. Iran still reeling after its 12-day war with Israel in June. Iran had announced it would begin military exercises in the Strait of Hormuz starting Sunday. The U.S. had warned against any action that put its ships in harm's way. And some worry that any escalation in the area could impact the global economy.
20% of the global oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran doesn't necessarily need to close it. Disruption alone in the Strait of Hormuz could cause a massive spike in energy prices.
Those exercises, Ian, it's not clear Iran actually intends to go ahead with them. After announcing them on state media last week, Iran's Revolutionary Guard now says none were planned.
And Aaron, Donald Trump has reacted to those threats from the Ayatollah about a U.S. attack leading to a broader regional conflict.
Yeah, he has, Ian. And with that expected mixture of bravado and bluster, Donald Trump again pointing out the size of the U.S. armada gathering near Iran, saying he hoped a deal would get done with Iran in the coming days. But if a deal doesn't emerge, well, we'd find out if Iran's supreme leader was right.
Aaron Collins reporting from Washington. Thousands of protesters rallied in Toronto today, calling for an end to Iran's regime, and many demanding foreign intervention.
I hope President Trump is a man of his word.
We need external force, external help to make sure that this is going to be ended.
President Trump, if whoever it is, we just want help for Iranian people.
Some of the marchers carried signs supporting the exiled son of the deposed Shah of Iran, who ruled the country for decades before the Islamic Revolution. Many expressing concern for loved ones in Iran weeks after the crackdown on anti-regime protests there. The full scale and brutality of that crackdown is unknown. Communications with Iran remain heavily restricted. But as Michelle Song shows us, Iranian Canadians are speaking out about loved ones who have died and the agonizing search for truth.
There's Wahid, there's Hamid.
It was the moment Tayyebe Poshtare feared, finding out on social media her relatives died during protests in Iran.
I can say for 1 hour, I just shivering because I shocked of this.
Vahid and Hamid Arzanlu protested on the streets of Tehran on January 8th, the same day an internet shutdown was implemented. Poshtare says the brothers were shot by Iranian forces and eventually succumbed to their injuries in hospital.
They just want a better life, nothing else, nothing else. Just want to make sure that Iran will be the better country for their kids.
It's difficult to confirm the actual death toll. Iran's government says more than 3,000 people died during the protests, while some human rights organizations say the number is significantly higher.
We have our own sources, reliable sources who send us the information.
Human rights organization Henga verifies individual deaths in Iran and shares their stories. It's also confirmed the deaths of the Arzanlu brothers.
We would have to wait for days to receive further information on that situation. So it was really terrible conditions for the human rights organization.
And I said, you said she was shot in the foot.
Yaseman, whose last name we aren't using over safety concerns for her family in Iran, also lost her aunt during the protests. And even with more access to the internet, she says communication is still difficult.
Because of the pressure that is on the families of those, especially who've been murdered, they are very scared to talk about anything. So we're pretty much just having vague conversations.
But for Yaseman and others like her, speaking out is the only way to make sense of the loss. Blackout restrictions are gradually easing in Iran, but fear still keeping majority in the dark. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
Health officials in Gaza say more than 30 Palestinians have been killed, including children, after a series of Israeli airstrikes. The attacks deepening frustration for thousands desperate for medical care in Egypt. Sasha Petrusik shows us their plight as they wait for the crossing at Rafah to open, as promised.
More than 3 months into a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, one of the most violent weekends in Gaza since that deal was reached. But also a glimmer of hope amid kidney patients anxious to leave Gaza for transplants. The Rafah crossing is our lifeline, says Mustafa Abdel Hadi. Indeed, ambulances wait on the other side in Egypt as officials finalize plans to unseal the only way in or out of Gaza for the first time in almost 2 years. It was supposed to open soon after the ceasefire began. But ongoing fighting dragged things out right to the eve of the opening. On Saturday, Israel hit police stations and tent cities with airstrikes. Israel also blamed delays in returning hostages for keeping Rafah closed. The war destroyed our future, says student Hudaya Al-Atwane, also waiting. We need to get it back. Israel says those who leave will be allowed to return, but many Gazans worry it's a plot to push Palestinians out for good.
We are very afraid to get out Gaza and could not come back to Gaza.
Starting this week, 150 Palestinians per day are supposed to cross out of Gaza, 50 to be allowed in. The process is complicated, involving layers of security checks. And with some 20,000 Palestinians waiting to leave for medical reasons alone, it could take months for many Gazans to fulfill their hopes. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A 5-year-old from Minneapolis who was detained by ICE has been released from custody. This coming after images of the boys surrounded by agents sparked waves of anger across the U.S. and beyond. Caroline Bargout looks at the shift in tone now coming from Washington.
After more than 10 days in custody, 5-year-old Liam Ramos is now home in Minneapolis. His release, along with his father's, ordered by a U.S. judge.
I still believe the American people want us to remove dangerous, violent criminals from the streets, but they don't want to see these images of children and people being dragged out of their cars and U.S. citizens.
Ramos's arrest sparked widespread outrage. Immigration officers were accused of using the preschooler as bait before detaining him. The Department of Homeland Security called that a lie and said Ramos was abandoned. Thousands have been taking part in protests across the U.S. calling for ICE to get out of their neighborhoods. The epicenter has been Minneapolis, where Border Czar Tom Homan has now been deployed, replacing the former head of the operation after 2 Americans were killed by agents. Since, there have been signs of a less aggressive stance. U.S. President Donald Trump now says federal officers will not be sent to Democratic-run cities unless requested.
The crime-ridden cities are all Democrat-run cities. And if they want help, they have to ask for it. Because if we go in, all they do is complain. But if they want help, they can ask for it, and they're going to need help.
Democrats have been demanding changes to the way ICE does its job, saying going forward, officers should only enforce warrants issued by judges.
The administrative warrants, in our view, aren't worth the paper they are written on. This is an extreme administration unleashing brutality on the American people using taxpayer dollars.
Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura taking a different stance, arguing his state should join Canada.
We could become mini-Toba. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's also dead serious. We're being attacked right now by our own president.
Homan has said he's working on a plan to pull some federal agents out of Minnesota and hoping to shift focus to immigrants already in jail. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Vancouver.
Donald Trump is now pushing to close the Kennedy Center in Washington for 2 years for construction. The center has faced a wave of cancellations by performers since Trump took it over, bringing new leadership and adding his own name to the building. In an online post, the U.S. president called it tired, broken, and dilapidated. If the board, which he chairs, approves, it will close July the 4th. Frigid temperatures are gripping parts of the U.S. tonight, from Florida right up the East Coast, after another winter storm brought more snow and ice to southern states.
Please stay at home if you possibly can. This is no joke.
North Carolina was hit hard with up to 30 centimeters of snow falling in and around the city of Charlotte. Lots of flights canceled throughout the region. Roads turned treacherous. Crews are scrambling to clean it all up, but officials warn that could take days. New photos released as part of the Epstein files are shining a harsh spotlight on the former Prince Andrew yet again. Jennifer Yoon with what they show and why, after this latest release, some Epstein survivors say they still have no closure.
On the floor, leaning over an unidentified female. New photos reinforcing an old link between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and the late sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. The images, among more than 3 million documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice related to the disgraced financier. The former prince has always denied wrongdoing, but there are more new allegations being reported by BBC News.
We're talking about at least one woman who was sent by Jeffrey Epstein over to Prince Andrew, and she even, after a night with Prince Andrew, had a tour of Buckingham Palace.
CBC News has not independently verified those claims, coming from a lawyer representing the alleged victim. They have not been proven in court, but the latest developments are prompting the British government to call on Andrew and others to testify before the U.S. Congress.
The way that we can help those victims is for anybody who has any insight or information about what went on to come forward and testify.
Epstein survivors say the files haven't done enough to expose every enabler and every abuser.
There is not a single bit of closure. What I'd like to ask any of them in the Department of Justice is, what is this? This is a victim statement. The only thing that was supposed to be redacted was her name.
The DOJ says it redacted documents to avoid identifying victims or jeopardizing an active federal investigation. And in an interview with ABC News, the U.S. Deputy Attorney General said Democrats are welcome to come and see for themselves.
We have nothing to hide. We never did. And our doors are open if they want to come and review any of the materials that we produced.
He says the DOJ is not considering any additional charges related to Epstein. But survivors say they'll keep pushing for answers and justice. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
A bus crash in Turkey has killed at least 9 people, including the driver. More than 24 others were injured after the bus failed to make a turn, smashing through guardrails and settling on an embankment. Officials at the scene say it appears the bus was moving quickly and weather conditions may have been a factor, but the investigation is ongoing. In Switzerland, confirmation another person has died as a result of a New Year's Eve fire at a ski resort bar. The victim, an 18-year-old Swiss national, the death toll now standing at 41. At least 40 people are still in hospital. Public prosecutors currently believe the fire was started by sparklers. Poilievre is set to return to Ottawa tomorrow after cementing his status as Conservative leader. Rafah now with what's next for the party and how it's looking to earn more support across the country.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre seizing on a moment of success after months of uncertainty.
When you care about something, you work for it. When you believe in something, you fight for it. And most of all, when you start something, you never give up.
Conservative Party members have rallied behind Poilievre in his leadership review, with more than 87% of voters backing him. Now comes the challenge of convincing Canadians.
We know our movement is strong, hopeful, united, resolute. We have a leader that's a litigator and up to the job, and our party's endorsed that direction wholeheartedly.
Poilievre made no mention of U.S. President Donald Trump in his speech. During the last general election, he faced criticism for failing to focus on Trump's threats against Canada. Instead, his messaging centered around the cost of living. Now, his former campaign manager is arguing there is a chance to do both.
You can address what's going on down south, you can address what's going on in the world, and how it actually is going to affect here in Canada. It's staying on top of things, being adaptable.
One more challenge for Poilievre that's out of his hands, the NDP nearly wiped out after last year's election. If the party is not able to bounce back, experts say a unified progressive vote could be insurmountable.
That is just absolute death for the Conservatives. The Conservatives cannot win an election if the NDP is in single digits or even in the low teens.
While there is no certainty around the timing of the next general election, a test of Poilievre's appeal is on the horizon, with at least 2 by-elections coming, though the dates have not been confirmed. Rafah Boudjikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
The Assembly of First Nations is warning about travel to the U.S.
ICE is targeting groups of people that would include First Nations.
A first-hand account of a father held up at the border. The Milano-Cortina Olympics are just days away, and NHL players are back at the games.
This rivalry with the States, like how high octane is that?
It's pretty high.
Adrian is there to set up the competition. Plus, from Alaska all the way to Argentina.
It was about 2 years in the making. It kind of hits me in waves.
This Nova Scotian completes a cycling first in our moment. We're back in 2. A historic run down under for Spanish tennis star Carlos Alcaraz. The 22-year-old became the youngest man ever to complete a career Grand Slam, beating Novak Djokovic in 4 sets to win the Australian Open. Djokovic himself was chasing a piece of history, the Serbian falling short of winning an unprecedented 25th Grand Slam title. The opening ceremony for the 2026 Milano-Cortina Olympic Games is now just 5 days away. As last-minute preparations play out, Adrian's in Italy getting a sense of what we can expect, including the renewal of a long-time rivalry.
This is Milan, and I want to show you something that's normally kept a surprise before the opening ceremony, and that is the cauldron. They're just working on the lighting. It is a tribute to the genius of Leonardo da Vinci, to the intricate use of knots. You're going to see a lot of da Vinci references in the opening ceremony, and then the conversation turns to sports. And at these Winter Olympics, that means spending some time talking about hockey, because the NHL is back for the first time since 2014, so you can expect some fierce competition, particularly between Canada and the United States, because, as you all know, there's just something about that matchup.
Canada has won the gold medal.
Let's get something straight. Canada's men's and women's hockey teams have won more Olympic gold than any other country.
Canada, gold!
How much does that bug Americans heading into Milan? Watch this.
You're going to Milan to bring home the biggest prize of all.
Canadian tears.
Yeah. Exactly.
Team USA and NBC with an ad feasting on that heated rivalry, as it were.
But they're usually so polite.
Not anymore.
Really? No. Are we sure we can't just hug it out?
This doesn't faze Canada's Sam Reinhart, an NHLer and first-time Olympian. Who's actually going to be crying in Milano-Cortina?
Hopefully happy tears from us afterwards.
Because you've
won
that gold medal.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't imagine they enjoyed talking about us probably filming this, so that's another reason to try and win the Olympics.
Oh, yeah, so you got in their heads.
Absolutely,
That's nice.
yeah.
And it seems to keep that up, CBC built an ad with the Team Canada response to the convenient soundtrack of the weekend's Save Your Tears. Save your tears indeed.
Guys you grew up admiring coming together to wear the Canadian jersey, there's nothing better. And then to be part of that, that's nothing short of a dream come true.
Canadian Brad Marchand, also a first-time Olympian. If you haven't seen him with the Florida Panthers, maybe you've seen him with his trademark teddy bears.
I heard Marshy brings his teddy bear to every game.
Don't listen to them, Mr. Bear. They're just jealous.
This rivalry with the States, like how high octane is that?
I think you saw it last year in the Four Nations. It's pretty high. I mean, just the competitiveness within the countries now is so intense, and the margin for error is so small.
That Four Nations tournament did turn up the temperature. Both countries' anthems booed. And 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of one game. You can't fight at the Olympics. Not a problem, he says.
I'm not much of a fighter. I just like to yap a little bit. So this just means I'll have to go after guys on our team in practice.
Go Canada, go! Make no mistake, there's no cockiness about their chances of winning, just understanding about expectations.
We understand that we're representing the nation, and we appreciate everybody's support. Our way of showing our appreciation back is our effort and our work.
Excited to wear the flag, and like a little kid, he's bringing the bears for encouragement.
Bringing them all. Yeah, I'm bringing them all. Yeah.
Okay. You've probably heard some chatter about the quality of the ice here. We are going to the main arena, which is Santa Giulia, tomorrow to check in on the construction and the ice, and we'll let you know how it looks. And Ian, the International Olympic Committee was asked today about the construction, the readiness of Santa Giulia, and they acknowledged that right now the work is frantic.
Adrian will be hosting the National from Milan all week before co-hosting the opening ceremony on Friday with Devin Haru from CBC Sports. Live coverage starts at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, wherever you watch CBC. Anticipation is building for the Artemis II launch, but how does a backup astronaut prepare?
If everything goes to plan, I won't go on this mission, and I hope not to.
My conversation with Canadian astronaut Jenni Gibbons. And some TikTok users are leaving the app.
Whenever you're restricting something that has been much more free range, it's going to feel like a form of control and a form of censorship.
The new privacy policy pushback. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. A First Nations man from the Northwest Territories is sharing his story tonight after he says he was detained while traveling through the U.S. As Julia Wong shows us, his experiences among several now prompting a wider warning for Indigenous people in Canada.
The rest and relaxation of Harley Minakis' recent Costa Rica trip was shattered when he made his way back to Canada through Houston, Texas.
When I went through the customs,
more or less, they picked me out right away.
From Gwich'in First Nation, Minakis was carrying a passport and all his other forms of ID, precautions after being stopped and questioned in 2013 over a previous charge. But this time, he says U.S. federal agents wanted a blood quantum letter, an official document stating a person has at least 50% indigenous blood.
I shouldn't have any issues. I have my Indian status card, I have my tribal card, but I still have to prove to them blood quantum.
The Jay Treaty allows First Nations members to travel freely across the U.S.-Canada border. But the Assembly of First Nations is now warning members, pointing to reports of increased questioning and detention by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Disheartening that we have to be even releasing this travel advisory.
A lot of fear, concern, and anger right now. What we're seeing is and hearing is that there certainly is racial profiling going on, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Indigenous people from Canada also get swept up in these actions.
The advice? Members should now carry blood quantum letters on top of other documents, says this chief.
ICE is targeting groups of people that would include First Nations and, asking for documentation from them. And so, again, deeply concerning.
After a couple hours, Minakis was able to get his letter from his band and traveled home. But his opinion of the U.S. has soured.
With this situation, I don't want to go back there.
Global Affairs Canada says it's aware of several cases of Canadians currently or previously in immigration-related detention in the U.S. It says consular officials can provide help to those detained. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world.
Going around the moon is hard, and Canada and the US are doing that together, and that's pretty special. I really hope it shines through.
The Artemis II launch window is set to open in 1 week, this coming Sunday. Canadian Jeremy Hansen is part of the 4-person crew and will become the first non-American to orbit the moon. But if he's physically unable to go on the mission, another Canadian, Jenni Gibbons, is ready to take his place.
My assignment as backup guarantees a seat for Canada, for all of you.
She's completed the same arduous training to be prepared for something only 24 human beings have ever done, to fly around the moon. I'm intrigued by your role as a backup astronaut because on the one hand, there is a possibility that in a few days on launch day, you will be in the capsule and part of the Artemis II crew. But if everything works out properly, you won't be. How do you prepare mentally for that?
It's an interesting mindset, actually. My biggest role is to support the mission and to support Jeremy. So I'm assigned to this mission and I go through all the training like the rest of the crew. Really, you can think of it as 6 of us are assigned, but 4 of us will go on the mission. And you're exactly right. If everything goes to plan, I won't go on this mission. And I hope not to. I want to see Jeremy fly. I think he's a phenomenal astronaut and a phenomenal Canadian. So I look at it as really allowing this mission and the Canadian Space Agency to have the strength and the depth that it needs to have someone on this seat around the moon, the first time that an international partner, a Canadian, has done something like this. So my job is to make sure that that happens, to keep people safe and to support the mission. And the most likely outcome is me being on the ground, preparing them for launch, being on the Capcom console in mission control, and being with their families, just providing whatever I can to make sure that the mission goes well.
The training that astronauts undergo is extraordinary. I mean, for civilians like me, it's hard to imagine. And yeah, I was talking to Jeremy a few months ago, and they're all the things that you would expect, and you've gone through all of them. You know, you go into a spacesuit or the equivalent of a spacesuit underwater to kind of replicate the idea of being in a no oxygen or low oxygen environment. You are doing all the physical things. You're doing all the mental preparation. What stands out to you as part of your astronaut training?
The training that stands out the most to me is with the Royal Canadian Air Force, with some SARTECs, actually, search and rescue, and some search and rescue pilots. And I was actually able to learn from them from about a week in Comox. And that was a combination of providing that care in a small environment, in an aviation environment, witnessing the leadership and crew coordination that the Royal Canadian Air Force is so good at, and really just trained me up on how to provide care in an aviation environment, which is not exactly the same, but has a lot of similarities to the kind of environment that we might face with in a small spacecraft. I also love it because it just really highlights something that Canada's so good at, which is looking after each other.
Yeah, I want to read from your bio that's on the Space Agency's website, but here it is: mechanical engineer, combustion scientist, assistant professor, your education, bachelor in mechanical engineering, PhD in engineering, languages, English, basic French, basic Russian, classic astronaut, right? Like it's so accomplished. But you know what I don't see on the resume is what it is that made you want to be an astronaut.
I think when I was growing up in Canada, I always really was fascinated with being outside. I loved this idea of learning about the things around me and exploring, and that really sparked this fascination. And then I had great role models. So people like Roberta Bondar, who flew when I was very young, but my mom really emphasized how important that mission was. And of course, we have greats like Marc Garneau and many other Canadian astronauts we can look up to. And that just encouraged me. So I think I kind of got the spark for exploration and saw it was possible in Canada. And then became interested in other things and engineering, like you say, and really revisited that dream when the Canadian Space Agency was looking for astronauts.
You mentioned Roberta Bondar. I've seen there's a charming video of you interviewing her.
I wanted to show you this because my mom kept it all these years.
People said, well, you know, you're carrying the weight of all women in Canada on my shoulders. I said, well, we're weightless. That's a good thing.
You are the third female Canadian astronaut. And I wonder what that in particular means for you.
It's certainly meaningful, especially when you think about the trailblazers that are Roberta and Julie. And I'm so grateful for their influence, both what they did indirectly in our country, just the act of being there and doing what they did and their achievements, but also directly the support that I've received from them. I'm fortunate to be in this role, and if I could be a positive influence in the lives of young people, hopefully little girls, but boys as well, anyone who's looking for inspiration or to do something that helps Canada in this way or other ways, I'd be really grateful. I think that is such worthwhile work, and I want to be a role model in those ways. When I think of myself, like I mentioned, Mark, and I've had so many role models and mentors who are dissimilar to me. So, well, I think that it's really important to have those people to say, hey, this is possible for me. This person is like me. Seeing that dissimilarity is also really valuable too, because it just expands viewpoints and it just makes you, I think, more well-rounded, more powerful if you can understand people who are very different than you. And so I feel very grateful for that, but I hope that we extend to include a lot of people in that bubble of inspiration in Canada.
You are way out of line here. I'm out of line. Yes, sir.
You know, Hollywood kind of suggests that astronauts have this swagger, that it is this kind of muscular, maybe macho environment. You guys don't seem that way. Is that a Canadian thing, or maybe Hollywood just has it wrong?
I would never describe myself as having any of that swagger that you mentioned. I think what is really important to being an astronaut now is an ability to work with one another. And now that our missions are typically longer, we really focus on looking after one another and how to be a good teammate. So maybe that's what you're picking up on. We spend a lot of time trying to select people who know how to get along with one another and support one another. And I think you'd find that if you were to spend time with the wider office, like the NASA Corps as well, hopefully you'd find the same thing. They're really, really positive and supportive people. So it's a nice environment.
You've mentioned Canada a few times about the things that you are proud of about Canada, and I see the Canadian flag on your shoulder. You know, of course, this is a time that from a political standpoint, there are tensions between Canada and the United States. Elbows up is a movement for a lot of people in Canada. Do you and the many Americans you work with at NASA, do you guys talk about that at all?
We do, in that we certainly acknowledge it because it's a big part of everyone's life. But at the operating level, when we work together, there's an acknowledgement of what you referred to, but there's also an understanding that we're operating with one another. We have a shared mission, we have shared goals, and a shared culture really at our working level. And we're embedded here to do well by Canada and just support our shared endeavors. Perhaps this is just an opportunity for one area that we can really show a shining example of teamwork and cooperation and doing something really hard together. Going around the moon is hard, and Canada and the US are doing that together, and that's pretty special. I really hope it shines through.
The Artemis crew remains in quarantine in Houston tonight while NASA counts down to a simulated launch time called a wet dress rehearsal set for Monday. I'll be hosting our live coverage of the actual launch, which could come as soon as next Sunday. Coming up, new TikTok rules spark fears over the impact on Canadian users.
If there's ever a conflict between the US and Canada, the US government can just simply order a company in Silicon Valley to shut us off.
While some are calling the app's first week under American ownership a disaster. That's next.
TikTok is acting weird right now.
A steady stream of people leaving TikTok after the social media app updated its rules to remain operational in the US.
The new TikTok terms of services have been released last night. Let me tell you how I feel about the whole TikTok terms and conditions privacy policy thing.
Now users are expressing new concerns about censorship and surveillance.
I think it's fair to address the elephant in the room of the current US political climate.
Ashley Fraser now on what's behind the mounting anxiety and whether your privacy is truly at risk.
So if you're on TikTok, your feed might be filled with some videos like this. TikTok is acting weird right now.
Something strange is happening on TikTok.
Just noticed today that all of them have started freezing.
These are videos from US content creators, and some of them are going as far to say that they're wanting to leave the app altogether. Basically, since the US version of TikTok came into effect last Saturday, many US users are expressing concerns that there could be more censorship and surveillance on the platform for posts like sharing ice in Minneapolis or being unable to send the word Epstein in direct messages. And this backlash speaks to a broader issue about how tech platforms are and aren't regulated by the government. But I'll get to that in a moment. Let's get into why this backlash over TikTok US is happening. The deal to take TikTok's global app and make it a separate one for the US came about because of a law that was passed in 2024 that stated TikTok needed to be divested from its Chinese-based parent company, ByteDance, or it would be blocked.
The House just passed the bill that could effectively ban TikTok here in the United States.
And that was over potential data security concerns that American data could be accessed by the Chinese government, and that TikTok's algorithm could be manipulated for US users. But now the deal has gone through, and while ByteDance still owns 19.9%, the rest of the company is owned by a majority of US investors,
TikTok,
including Oracle, whose co-founder, Larry Ellison, is a prominent backer of Donald Trump. CBC News' fact-checking team reached out to TikTok about the concerns from US users about changes to their feeds. TikTok USDS, as it's now called, pointed to a statement that says they're experiencing infrastructure issues triggered by a power outage at a US data center, which may have caused users' For You page, direct messages, and uploads to glitch. And they are working to resolve it. In a follow-up, TikTok USDS told CBC News that TikTok's policy for sharing content hasn't changed, and they have no rules for words like Epstein. One security expert I spoke to said that TikTok's explanation about the power outage makes sense given the fact that new rules for TikTok US require all its servers to be based there.
Last year, if there'd been a power outage, TikTok would have just shifted the load to Singapore. We can't do that under the new agreement. In a way, it's a sign that the agreement's actually working.
But that isn't stopping people from deleting the app. According to a report from a market intelligence firm, US TikTok users deleting the app have increased more than 190% this week, compared to the previous 90 days. And that's in part because of this pop-up.
The new TikTok terms of services have been released last night. Let me tell you how I feel about the whole TikTok terms and conditions privacy policy thing.
The launch of TikTok USDS prompted US users to sign a new privacy agreement. Now, according to the experts we spoke to, the new agreement largely collects the same amount of data as the previous TikTok policy, which tracked information like immigration status, race, gender, and location. But there are some key differences.
The shift to precise geolocation tracking is a very different thing. That can reveal precise address that you're located at when you're logging into the application.
Callie Schrader is senior counsel at the Electronic Privacy Information Center. While US users can turn off the precise location tracking on their phones, she says the distrust for the new US version of TikTok is not surprising.
I think it's fair to address the elephant in the room of the current US political climate and why things like precise location information and inferences like race and immigration status are so concerning. ICE is targeting a lot of people for mass deportations, and the concern that this information could be used or combined with government searches in this way is a valid concern.
And that's because other tech companies in the States like Google and Meta can and have already shared data with the US government. Both companies display the number of requests they receive from governments for data online.
We are trading one master for a different master.
Philip Mai is the co-director of the Social Media Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University. He says the concern over the Chinese government accessing US user data isn't far off from the US government's policies on data collection.
The only difference is that instead of Big Brother, we have a whole bunch of little brothers called private companies that collect these things, and then they turn around and sell access to those things to the government.
So remember when I said this backlash says something about how governments regulate apps and tech? Well, both Schrader and Mai point to the new US version of TikTok as an example of a wider trend of digital sovereignty. It's the idea that a country should have control over its digital infrastructure, like data, hardware, and software, and not be beholden to another country's tech, particularly in times of unrest.
If there's ever a conflict between the US and Canada, the US government can just simply order a company in Silicon Valley to shut us off.
But that's a concept that would take some time to get used to, and it would require citizens to feel like they could trust their own governments when it comes to protecting data privacy.
The World Wide Web was supposed to be the World Wide Web, right?
That was the promise, but what has happened is that we saw that when China, Iran, and North Korea went that route, people were trying to push back, saying, no, we want an open web, we want something that's interoperable. But sadly, the reality is that geopolitical decisions have changed the rules and changed the landscape.
Schrader says this is why strong privacy laws from governments at the provincial and state level, and then at the federal level, are needed to help better protect user data, but also to hold apps accountable about how they share information.
And whenever you're restricting something that has been much more free range, it's going to feel like a form of control and a form of censorship, and people typically do not respond well to that. I think that's a good part of why we're seeing such strong pushback in this case. But if we did have a strong privacy law on the books, it would mitigate a lot of these concerns rather than leaving it to individuals to have to pick and choose what apps they use to try and protect their safety.
As for those technical issues Ashley mentioned, today TikTok released a statement apologizing and saying it's fully restored all services. Coming up, a Canadian woman makes history on her bike.
I started in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and rode all the way down to Ushuaia, Argentina.
Her epic ride in our moment. Next. This is Ashley Miles, moments after she became the first woman to cycle the length of the Pan American Highway. The Nova Scotia native traveled about 22,500 kilometers on her bike solo. Her long and impressive journey makes our moment.
It was about 2 years in the making. It kind of hits me in waves. I started in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and rode all the way down to Ushuaia, Argentina in 118 days, 2 hours and 30 minutes. My goal was to set a record for the fastest female to ride the Pan American Highway. There was no record, so if I finished it and met all the criteria, then it's a record. And there was a lot of planning that went into it. I forgot to download the South America map, So for the longest time, it was just like, follow road, follow road. I was just like, am I gonna get lost? I don't know, like this really sucks. You've made it this far, so you might as well keep going. When you're out there to do a certain thing, the goal is to do that. It was pretty cool to like be at the end and see the sign and see my partner and be like, is that it? Is that it? Like, did the road just finish? Whoa, this is like the end of the world. It was really cool.
And in doing all of this, she didn't realize that there's apparently another record, and that is for the speed with which you travel down South America. And she became the fastest woman to do that. 54 days, 9 hours, and 37 minutes. From all of us at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Ian Hannamansing in Vancouver. I hope you can join me weeknights at 7 Eastern on CBC News Network. Good night.